he is, what he does, what he studies, uh, what are his favorite hobbies, and anything he would like to add. So uh, feel free to introduce yourself. I mean,
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Well, I know my first name also appears here, but I usually use Emin. I'm from Turkey, but as he said, I live in London right now for about 3 months. I'll be leaving in 2 weeks. And I study at Minerva University. It's a college in the US. And I study political science and history. So I'm really interested in anything culture related, especially Latin America, actually, because I've lived in Colombia and Argentina before for pretty long time, and I hope to return actually as soon as possible to live in Mexico and Brazil as well for like a bit of time to explore the regions. And as for hobbies, honestly, my university is quite hard. I don't have much free time to do other stuff most of the time, but when I get a chance, I love playing chess because I used to compete in tournaments, and I also like learning languages. I've learned Spanish last year, and hopefully next, I don't know anything yet, don't put me to test, but I hope to learn Portuguese when I am able to move to Brazil and just learn it on the spot, because that's how I did it with Spanish before. Also, sorry
that's
for
it.
the delay, because I really thought this was gonna happen at like in noon, but then I was like in bed when I got the message, "Are you coming?" And I just like joined. But yeah, thank you for waiting.
So thank you, and it's totally fine. Well, so I asked Emmy to introduce himself at this point. I'll be translating what he has said so we can understand a little bit more. Bom, então agora nesse início eu pedi para que o Emin se introduzisse. Aqui, se vocês olharem no Meet, ele tem o primeiro nome que é um pouquinho mais difícil de pronunciar, mas ele falou que a gente pode chamar ele de Emin mesmo, que é o segundo nome. E ele vem da Turquia, ele nasceu na Turquia, mas ele está atualmente morando em Londres e ele vai sair de lá daqui mais ou menos umas 2 semanas. Ele estuda na Universidade de Minerva, e a Minerva, que, para quem não sabe, é uma universidade que você estuda a cada semestre em um país diferente. Então, ele já passou por alguns países e agora ele esteve em Londres, e depois ele vai passar para outro país para estudar no próximo semestre. Ele estuda ciências políticas e história, e ele já esteve presente na América Latina em alguns países, como a Argentina e a Colômbia. Ele pretende voltar aqui depois para morar um tempo por aqui, inclusive no Brasil. Ele diz que considera morar aqui por um tempo. E alguns dos seus principais hobbies é que ele gosta muito de jogar xadrez, né? Mesmo que ele tenha ali uma vida bem ocupada, uma vida bem corrida, estudando na Minerva, ele gosta de se dedicar em alguns hobbies, e também ele diz que ele gosta de aprender idiomas, né? Aprender línguas. E ele também diz que futuramente ele aprende a aprender português. Well, so thank you so much, Evan. I think that was a great introduction, and we could already learn a little bit more about you. And at this point, I would like to encourage you guys to already raise your hand and make questions if you would like to add anything. So if you'd like to ask anything about Emin future, what does he do, what is his study, his hobbies, and anything he has already shared, you can just feel free to raise your hand. Bom, então, o Amin acabou de se apresentar, e se vocês já gostariam de trazer alguma pergunta para ele, falar algo sobre o que foi compartilhado já na apresentação, você pode levantar a mão aqui no Meet para fazer pergunta, tá? Eu já vou estar recolhendo agora, e vocês já podem começar a interagir, tudo bem? E claro, só reforçando que caso vocês tiverem alguma dúvida de alguma palavra, não tenho totalmente de confiança para falar, eu estou aqui para ajudar você, e eu também vou traduzir o que ele compartilhar na resposta da que vocês estão perguntando. So, firstly, I see Montserrat, fique à vontade.
Hi, everybody. How difficult was it to learn English being from Turkey? I think Turkey is a very different language.
Thank you for the question. Yes, it's a very different language, like compared to, for example, the grammar structure between like Brazilian, Spanish, English. Like you can find a lot of similarities, both with vocabulary and how they're spoken. Turkish is completely the exact opposite, with almost no overlaps. So for me, it was just like learning a whole new area of things. But thankfully, the way that I did it was that in our schools, they also teach us, but like they teach us. I'm pretty sure it's similar in Brazil that like at school there's classes, but you never really develop the skills to speak. You just like sit down and learn words or concepts. So for a long time, I didn't speak any English. But when I decided that I have to, I just found a few online friends. They were mostly from Germany, actually. I used to play a lot of video games or like just use a lot of social media. So we started chatting every day, just a lot of practices. And that's when I like over a few months, I started growing more and more comfortable. I think genuinely the moment when I decided to stop learning and start practicing was when I like actually started learning the language. And then it was obviously hard. Like learning any language is hard, but once you put yourself through that process, you you just learn it. Like it becomes easy. Because I've one example I like is that when you were born, none of your parents sat down taught to teach you how to speak Portuguese. Like there was no board to write words. There was no dictionaries. You heard, you spoke, you made mistakes, and you learn. And I think learning a language, even when you're an adult, should be a process like this.
Wow, that's honestly really interesting. And overall, could you share us like how many languages do you actually speak? So
Just
what you've been?
three, hopefully soon four. But right now, I only speak like Turkish, English, and Spanish.
Wow, interesting. Bom, e perfect. So a Monte fez uma pergunta sobre os idiomas do Emin, que ele sabe e tal. E ele falou que, por exemplo, para aprender turco, às vezes é um pouquinho diferente, principalmente você tem que aprender todos os conceitos de idioma ali do início, enquanto, por exemplo, nós que falamos aqui português, a gente consegue se adaptar um pouco melhor para línguas que são um pouco mais similares, como espanhol, francês, inglês, enfim. E ele sabe que, por exemplo, aqui no Brasil a gente tem algo que é um pouco limitado em aprender inglês na escola, que a gente às vezes aprende só alguns conceitos, algo ali que é de certa forma limitado, mas a gente não aprende realmente a falar. Mas, por exemplo, a sua experiência em aprender idiomas, ele teve alguns alunos, alunos não, amigos online que ele praticava, ele costumava ali, enfim, compartilhar mensagens e tal, ele tentava ele se desafiar, ele também jogava videogames, e ele realmente sabe que é difícil aprender idiomas, mas ele sempre esteve ali encorajado, ele sempre motivado a fazer esse desafio. Bem, e acho que algo que foi muito importante no aprendizado dele é que ele realmente esteve imersivo, então ele compartilha, por exemplo, como nós aqui aprendemos português, nós aprendemos porque nosso pai, nossa mãe ali, nossas pessoas próximas estavam ali sempre falando, então não exatamente a gente estava lendo ali um livro, fazendo algo assim, totalmente específico, mas é sobre essa questão de imersão, foi algo que ele aplicou bastante. So, thank you, Montserrat. Next, I see Durval.
Good evening, everyone. Emin, nice to meet you. And I have a question for you. And about sports, I think Turkey people love so much soccer. Do you like soccer or any other sports? And do you play any sports?
Well, thank you for your question. Really nice to meet you as well. In Turkey, yes, football is actually very big. I think like Brazilians are still ahead on that regard. You guys seem very passionate about it, but in Turkey, it's a very big sport as well. It's the most popular one. I've never really been into football. Like, it's interesting, but I personally don't watch it. Um, as a sport, I like exercising by swimming. Like I used to be in a swim team in my school before, so that. But I don't really have any sport that I follow, like to watch and root for a team yet.
Okay, and I have one question for you about food. What the first three dishes, the first plate in Turkey?
So,
Because I think you have delicious food in your country. Okay, I want to know about the food in your country, the first dish.
well, thank you so much. That's a very good point. Turkish people are very proud of their food. So, Brazil is a very diverse country because it's very big. Turkey is not that big. We have 90 million people. The country is smaller, but we're in the middle of basically Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So all of those ingredients and influences had shaped both our culture, like how we live and how we eat. So we have a lot of food overlaps with all of our neighbors. It's kind of like a mix of what like what everyone in the region eats from different parts. Um, to be honest, in a typical day, like when I get home and what my mom cooks is not that different what you would be eating in Brazil, in the sense that like we eat a lot of rice always. There's a lot of beans, either like white beans, garbanzo beans. We have a few like Turkish alternatives. There's gonna be some salad and some sort of meat. We don't eat pork because of religious reasons. It's very rare to see pork in Turkey. There's a lot of chicken, beef, and lamb. But apart from it, like what we eat at home, we have a lot of soups, very different, and like almost every meal you have some soup every dinner. And the food that you eat outside when you go, there's lots of kebabs, but don't just think the sandwich. There's a lot of like complicated dishes made out of meat, mostly lamb, and there's a lot of bread. We eat a lot. I think we eat the most bread in the world. Like people eat so many different types of bread with so many different meals. And one important other thing is that uh we like it's not food obviously, but we have a huge culture around drinking coffee and drinking tea at the same time, because many countries in the world they have one or the like in UK everyone is a tea drinker. There's coffee, but it is, and in Brazil obviously growing all the coffee there, coffee is so popular. For us, in during the day you drink tea at least 2 times and coffee once maybe in different hours, so it's very common. And then like it's, and lots of desserts. We love our sweets. People there eat a lot of sweets.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate talking with you. Good luck for you. Okay, take care.
Thank you,
See
same.
you
Great
soon.
coffee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Durval. Thank you, Emin. Bom, então, Durval fez duas perguntas, uma sobre os esportes, né, na Turquia e se ele pratica algum, e também a segunda pergunta foi mais sobre a culinária. E basicamente o Emin falou que ele praticava natação quando ele estava no ensino médio ainda, mas que de forma geral ele não se dedicou tanto assim, está super engajado em fazer esportes. E sobre a pergunta da alimentação, ele falou que o pessoal na Turquia tem ali um grande orgulho, né, sobre a sua gastronomia, e talvez ele numa jornada, assim, algo rotineiro, eles também consomem arroz e feijão e algum tipo de salada, e às vezes algum tipo de carne. Menos porco, na verdade, eles não consomem tanta carne de porco assim, e adicionalmente eles também costumam comer bastante sopa. Tem várias variedades ali de sopa e também de sanduíches, e de forma geral, assim, os pratos eles não são tão difíceis de se preparar. E eles também têm uma cultura grande de tomar chá e café ao mesmo tempo. Então, aqui, por exemplo, no Brasil, a gente tem uma cultura forte de tomar bastante café, e lá no Reino Unido, por exemplo, eles têm uma cultura forte de tomar chá. Lá, para eles, eles acabam tendo essa cultura forte de tomar os dois. So, actually, something that we usually do here in our meetings is that we ask for the guests to Google and like share your screen with the main dishes their country have like, and I would appreciate if you could share these dishes with us. Share the screen.
Yes, yes. Let me just open up a few. If anyone has a question in the meantime, like I can hear it while I'm trying to find the pictures. And
Ok. Well, bom, então, caso mais alguém aqui gostaria de fazer alguma pergunta, vocês podem levantar as mãos. Eu pedi para o Emin agora compartilhar alguns dos principais pratos, né, da culinária da Turquia. Ele vai compartilhar aqui para a gente na tela. E se alguém já gostaria de fazer alguma pergunta, pode perguntar também. Romulo?
Hello, good evening for everyone. And Amy, nice to meet you. And thank you so much for your time here with us. And now you are in London, right? And I would like to know if it's your first time there, and what about you like most there in London? Because I like London. I've been there once, and I'm gonna travel to there another time in 2 weeks, and I would like to hear you.
well, thank you so much for the question. I do think London is pretty amazing. Honestly, when it's winter or fall, it's a bit gloomy. Like it gets somehow dark, and it was not great when I first came. But now that the spring is around and the summer is coming, like it became really sunny now, the weather is warmer, the people are outside, and I really like the vibes because it's a huge city. Like it's one of the biggest cities in the world. So you have all the arts, museums, cultures that you can look for. It's very rich in that regard. And there's always something to do. There's always something big happening. There's always someone interesting. So for that, I think London is a very like unmatched special place if you come in the right time. Also, the other issue that it's quite expensive. Like for me as a Turk, it's very expensive, and so one has to be careful with that. But apart from it, it's definitely a very enjoyable place to come see. Also, I have the photos ready that I can share my screen now, I think. Wait a second.
Okay,
Just,
thanks for your answer.
of course, of course. So wait, are you seeing my screen fine right now? Or yes?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing is that breakfast is huge for us. Like, it's obviously not every day looks like this, but on weekends we will invite our family and friends on a Sunday breakfast. Just prepare like a huge table like this with like multiple types of bread, cheese, tomatoes, fruits, whatever. And it always has to look like very big and lots of stuff in it, and like small different things to try out, basically. And it's very big. Like it's a whole concept called Turkish breakfast, and you have restaurants that are just dedicated for it. The other thing, this is from my province. It's called Iskender kebab, which is like, well, this is yogurt. We eat yogurt with everything. That's another thing. Yogurt for us is not a dessert. It's a salty like meal accompaniment. There's a lot of meat under it. There's a special type of bread, and there's a sauce made out of tomato that you pull on front of it. It's like a very popular thing to eat when you go out and you want to eat like something nice. And for example, at home, we make a lot of this. It's called, these are dolma, these are sarma. It's basically stuffed, like, this is some sort of a vegetable and rice mix with a sauce. And you can fill either dried eggplant, dried peppers, or these are vine leaves, like the trees that olives grow on. No, sorry, not olives. The like the vine fruit grows on. You just basically take those leaves and process them and then make them edible like this. It's one of my favorite dishes. It looks kind of weird, but it's delicious. You put a lot of lemon on it also. It's quite nice. And then like dessert that I've mentioned, for example, is very popular. Like baklava, everyone hears about it, I think. Turkish delight, we eat a lot of it with coffee. These are like different stuff that you can see. All of them have their own names, different ways of making. Sometimes your mom makes it at home. Some of them you can only buy from outside, but we have lots of desserts for different occasions. Like this one is served only during 1 month in a year because like it has a special culture around it. This one is served only 1 month of the year as well, but another like month basically. This one we only make it when someone dies. Like I mean, you can make it another days as well, but it's usually like dessert that you make after the grieving and like kind of like getting back to life, and like you serve your guests. So all the desserts have their own special connotations and then like times of eating or not.
That's really interesting. Like, I love seeing different foods from different countries, and I think that I had tried one of these sweets that you have shown. Like, there was like a table with many of different sweets. So, like, once I was in a debating conference, and it was like a cultural extravaganza with different tables from different countries, and I have tried a lot of Turkey sweets, sweet little treats. Well, bom, então compartilhando um pouco sobre o que o Emin falou agora sobre a culinária, eu pedi para que ele mostrasse alguns pratos e principalmente ele ressaltou que no fim de semana o pessoal na Turquia tem uma cultura muito forte de se reunir com uma família para fazer um café da manhã bem completo. Eles valorizam muito o café da manhã, mas talvez assim numa rotina assim geral eles não fazem isso todos os dias, mas eles também valorizam o café da manhã. E outro fato bem interessante é que eles comem iogurte como se fosse algo salgado, como se fosse algo adicional ali, não exatamente assim como nós comemos. Às vezes a gente acaba fazendo uma mistura de tanto salgado e tanto doce, mas eles comem algo como se fosse mais salgado. E eles também têm outro tipo de salada ali. Então, eles têm uma variedade muito grande de saladas, como que ele mostrou aqui, inclui pimenta, berinjela, arroz, com vários temperos. Isso de forma geral que ele compartilhou alguns pratos. So, thank you, Emin, and thank you for who have brought that question before. And next, Fabio.
Hello for everyone. Good evening. And I'd like to know what kind of place do you find most interesting to visit in Turkey?
That's a good question, and it's also very relevant because today I was trying to plan my summer. I'll have 4 months of vacations, and I was planning to spend it in Turkey mostly because I haven't lived in Turkey since I was 16. I'm 21 now, so I haven't like it's been a long time. I visited sometimes, but honestly, I've seen more in like for example, I've seen more of Colombia than I've seen of Turkey because like I was like actively trying to see the around. So I haven't traveled much around Turkey yet. I really like my own city, Istanbul, obviously, and then the province my parents come from, Bursa. They are very nearby to each other, northwestern Turkey. It's the most like urban, developed, lots of history, lots of culture type of part of the country. But it's also very like general. It's not the hidden gems are not there. You have to go to east for that. But honestly, I'm trying to explore as well. Like I don't know yet. There's things that I can tell you that I know from other people, but I haven't seen most of Turkey by myself yet. Hopefully this time I'll be doing that.
Thanks.
Wow. So now I'm actually curious to know a little bit more, like, of how many countries you have already visited, like, overall.
So visited and like I'll differentiate. I've lived in like 7 different countries. Yes, no, 8 different countries. I've lived in 8 different countries, and when I say lived, I mean like uh at least 4 or 5 months or more, like having a home, staying there. But apart from those 8 that I've lived in, I also visited like 2 or 3 countries for touristic reasons for a few days, just seeing around.
Wow. So, like, overall, so you have been to 11 to 12 countries, like, overall, like, different countries. And
I think 11.
yeah, okay. And, like, which countries are these?
Yeah. So well, I've been to Turkey, obviously. I've been to the US. I've been to Colombia. I've been to Argentina. I've been to England. I've been to Ireland, and I've been to Korea, Taiwan, and India. And I visited like a lot within those countries as well. And then like I also been to a few countries for shorter times. Like I've spent a day in Uruguay. Like I visited briefly, for example. I've spent a day in Ethiopia for a flight that back then, so I wouldn't count that. But Uruguay went to see there. So yeah, quite all around the world basically.
Oh, really interesting. Bom, então, eu perguntei agora um pouquinho para mim sobre os países que ele já visitou, quantos no total e quais. E ele disse que ele já morou em, assim, mais ou menos 8 países, e que ele considera como morou, que ele passou ali pelo menos 5 a 6 meses em cada um deles, então ele já tem um background legal de vários países diferentes. E visitar mesmo, tipo, por questões ali turísticas mesmo, que foi algo mais rápido, ele considera 11 cris, então no total ele já passou por 11 países. E eu perguntei quais países foram esses, e ele disse que ele já passou pela Turquia, pelos Estados Unidos, pela Colômbia, pela Argentina, pela Inglaterra, pela Irlanda, pela Coreia do Sul, pelo Taiwan, pela Índia, enfim. Esses foram os países que ele já teve a experiência de visitar. That's honestly really interesting. And else, would you like to bring another question? And also, I would like to reiterate that anyone can raise your hand here on the like at this way, and you can already bring anything you would like to ask for Emin. Então, se alguém gostaria de perguntar algo para o Emin, falar em inglês, ele colocar, se desafiar, você pode levantar a mão aqui, que eu estou recolhendo perguntas no momento. But Elvis, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, Emin. It's a pleasure to have you with us and nice to meet you. So, how does the educational approach at Minerva University differ from what you experience at Turkey?
So I never attended university in Turkey, but I have friends who go, and I know from them. I think the largest difference is that in many countries, not just in Turkey, when you go to university, you have like a huge class of like 400 people, 300 people just sitting and listening. Like there, you're just there to hear. Whereas in Minerva, our classes are maximum 20 people and everyone has to be speaking. Like, class is not to learn. You learn before coming to the class, you read yourself. And then when you're there, is to discuss. The professor is not trying to teach you, the professor just helps you like discuss the point in a more productive way, and then like kind of puts the debate in the right course. So Minerva is very interactive. Minerva really focuses on student participating rather than just like sitting there and then sleeping, like, or just like taking notes passively. So it's very active, and I think that's the biggest difference that I appreciate the most.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvis. And also, I would like to add, what's your favorite thing about Minerva?
I mean, I'll say the travel. I think it's a bit cliche at this point, but definitely the amount that we get to travel. Because, like, I've lived in so many countries because of my university, and I've met so many friends. Like, I have. When I lived in Argentina, I made so many close friends from Argentina, Peru, Brazil. I lived with the Brazilians for about like 10 days, even towards the end of my time there. And then like I have these people that I go back to say hi, and then like there's those like nice. One of my friends visited me from a country that I've lived in, came to London to like hang out here. So those connections and the ability to see the world is like the best part.
Really cool. Well, bom, então, partindo para a próxima pessoa. And also, thank you, Elvis. I see Montserrat.
Hello again. In Turkey, you love cats. Me too. How did it become special and cared for? And have you seen anything similar in the other countries?
That's a very good question. Yeah, cats are huge. Like, we take care of them. In my street alone, maybe there live like 20 street cats, and people leave like plates of water, plates of food for the cats on the different parts of the street so they can like eat. We make little homes for them sometimes, or like some nights when it's cold, my parents would allow me to bring a street cat from street to home, so like they can sleep comfortably that night. So people are like really okay with it. They enter and exit our home sometimes, not necessarily always. So, and I think where it started is that it's a part of our culture. Like, when you 100 years ago, Turkey was Ottoman Empire, right? So when you look at their architecture from like 100 to 100 years ago, you see that when they build buildings, they would make like special areas where the rainwater get collected so the birds drink from it. You see like special bird and cats houses even 100 years ago. The empire, at least in their capital, really cared about taking care of animals because of religious reasons mostly. So we've grown really compassionate of it. And I like, in other countries, I haven't seen this to this extent. I heard that in Greece, for example, it's like this as well. Like, they have so many street cats and they take care of them, but I have never been there. So far, I've only seen it in Turkey, and I think it's very special. Like, I grew up playing with street cats and petting them, and like, them, they come to you. It's a very nice feeling. I miss that.
Oh, it's so very wonderful. I think in Turkey, this is a important example for the world.
Definitely. Thank you. Also, I must say, I'm very surprised by two things so far in the call. One is that people seem to know a lot about Turkey. Like, they're very percent of the questions that I've gotten, like cats, the I don't know, the general passion about football. It seems people have like very particular, like, they hear stuff which I didn't expect at all. And the second thing is that uh like, I don't know for how long you've been learning English so far, the people who ask questions, but the accent and the fluency just really surprised me a lot because I expected something like more like a beginner level kind of struggling. But so far, everyone's been amazing. Like, thank you for both. It's going great.
Thank you. Well, so thank you, Montserrat, for also bringing a question. And also, I have a question related to how is actually, um, how is it the experience to be in a world class community, like with so many culture immersions, and how's it this immersion with Brazilian students? Like I've seen you actually know a lot from Brazil. Like you have mentioned a lot of aspects, like about coffee, about uh, I don't know, many other things here in this conversation. So I would like to know a little bit more about this aspects.
So, like, generally just talking about international living with all these people, or like,
Yeah. So first question, I would like to know a little bit more about the experience of actually having so much cultural diversity in a world class as Minerva offers, and the second would be like, how's their experience with this immersion with maybe Brazilian students and youths?
honestly, like, I love it because it's obviously a lot of different perspectives that are brought to people. Like, you hear people's life experiences, they have their different perceptions of their history, of their culture, of their identities, and it enlightened me because, like, for example, because I'm from the largest city in Turkey, and because we have the cultural domination over the rest of the country, as like the east, that 1/4 of us live there. So my province is the strongest financially, population wise, and I know I've realized that when I meet my friends from, let's say, it's she's a Spaniard, but she doesn't come from the capital. She comes from a smaller town, like, away from it. And when I hear her talk about how they relate to their own capital and how they see their people from the capital of being like kind of like thinking more simple, generalizing the country, like I realized those conversations, I get to know even my own country better, seeing how the other people experience their cultures, and like those discussions have been really fruitful. Or you see how views on a topic like differ very big, especially when it comes to politics and history, I think, but in anything else as well, like things we get surprised over, the things that we value. One example I think is really nice is that my Irish friend, she's my best friend in the university, they like Irish people are very nice. They're very caring. They're very sharing. But for them, individualism matters. There's a lot of personal space. Like they don't hug much. They don't like. They're not very physically touchy. Or uh, like if they're eating a snack, they won't necessarily just offer you. Like they don't share that much. It's not a cultural thing. In Turkey, if you're eating something in front of me, that's already an offer. Like if you're my friend and you're eating chips there, I'm gonna like I might ask to be extra kind, but it's already assumed that since we're so close, like it's a shared thing, right? So we were so close. Like initial days of our friendship, she would get sometimes so surprised by me just reaching out to something she's eating. She's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Well, that's the most normal thing I can do." She's like, "What do you mean?" Or like similar with like hugging and the way we greet. So those funny differences, like you have to learn how to meet in the middle, and you realize how something that looks so weird to you is so normal to the other person. And like it's not about being rude, it's not about being arrogant, it's just like you just don't see it that way. And I find it really fun. Like there's so many different stories and experiences that come out of it.
It's really interesting. I think this usually reflects a lot when you're having a contact with people from different countries, as I have also experienced that for uh, with a few people. But like, could you share a little bit more about Brazil? So, like,
Yes. Well, I don't honestly in my class there's a lot of Brazilians, but I don't know them very close. Like I didn't spend so much time together with them generally. I love them. Been very amazing people. Brazilians that I know the most are so towards the end of Argentina semester when I was there, I had to stay in Argentina longer, but my home was no longer available. So I didn't have a place to stay. But then a Brazilian guy that I knew through a friend, we've met once. Like he doesn't know me. We've met once. And he was like, you know what? If you're struggling with place, I have extra space in my home. You come move in with me. I was like, okay. So I moved into this like person that I don't even know, but just through a common friend. And I stayed there for a week. And I met all of his friends because he had like housemates who are also Brazilians, and then they were around a lot. But honestly, in Turkey, we like to say that with like Latin Americans in general, like not just necessarily Brazil, we share a lot of cultural qualities. Like the way we interact, we're really loud. We speak a lot. We're really close with our families. Our cultures are very food centric, and then like people love again like hugging, like being touchy. There's not much personal space. Like you see that, and then the friendships are much more intimate. You become friends so easy. Like just you exchange a conversation, and you're like, oh, like come over, come stay with us, be friends, whatever. And it's a very rare thing that kind of like only exists in Latin America mostly and like Mediterranean, I'll say. So in that regard, I don't feel strangers when I'm with Brazilians at all. Like it just takes a few words to like it's just like I'm talking to another Turk basically, but just in another language. But this the same feeling I get it with like many other Latinos as well. So it's been perfect. Like it's like a good vibe.
Also, it's interesting to know that you actually have contact with many Brazilians. Bom, então, compartilhando um pouco mais sobre o que o Emin trouxe até a gente agora. Eu perguntei para ele como que é estar numa faculdade onde você tem uma grande imersão cultural com pessoas assim do mundo inteiro e também como que era o contato com ele com brasileiros. E ele disse que, na verdade, ele tem várias perspectivas assim de pessoas de diferentes países. E, por exemplo, ele nasceu na Turquia e ele esteve principalmente na capital e às vezes ele encontra outras pessoas que moraram em regiões diferentes. Ele acaba aprendendo mais sobre o seu país, sobre coisas que às vezes ele nem sabia. E algo curioso também é que às vezes ele tem alguns choques culturais com outras pessoas. Por exemplo, ele tem é, um amigo da Irlanda que, por exemplo, ele notou que eles não gostam muito de contato próximo, que eles são pessoas mais reservadas e, por exemplo, na Turquia as pessoas acabam sendo um pouco mais abertas para interagir e ele acha que lá eles sentem que as pessoas são mais aptas também a compartilhar suas próprias coisas. Uh, e outro aspecto é que, por exemplo, algo que ele estava compartilhando um pouco sobre o Brasil é que nós brasileiros somos muito gentis, assim, de forma geral, que estamos sempre compartilhando o que nós temos também. E, por exemplo, quando ele estava com dificuldades para arrumar lugar para ficar na Argentina, que ele estava indo para lá com a Minerva, no próximo semestre, ele teve um amigo brasileiro que apoiou ele, né, e ofereceu ali moradia para ele por alguns dias até ele conseguir finalizar a sua reserva. E então ele acha que ele tem uma boa visão dos brasileiros assim, de forma geral. Ele acha que a gente também fala um pouco mais alto, assim, a gente tem um tom de voz que é um pouco mais alto, e a gente também tem um contato muito próximo de abraçar, de cumprimentar, e que ele vê que isso talvez seja muito raro e que, na verdade, isso é um pouco mais presente na América Latina, mas que ele acha que também se assemelha bastante à cultura da Turquia. Né? Às vezes ele sente que é como se ele estivesse falando com outro turco, só que em outro idioma, de tão próximo que às vezes a cultura são. Perfeito. Well, next, Newton, fique à vontade.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to meet you. I have a question. What is the healthcare system like in Turkey? Is it public or private?
So good question. I think it's like Turkey is a like a social like yes, we have a social system, as in not a socialist system, but social system like Germany does, Norway does. It's like you know, there is well, it's a mix because we have lots. Our education is public, our health system is public, but there's lots of private ones as well. So government provides you an option, but if you want, you can also pay for it. But most people go to public hospitals, and in public hospitals, if like depending on your insurance type, which is mandatory, so everyone before you even get your salary, the money that will go to your insurance gets cut. So like it's out of your salary, but you don't even see it. So all of us are insured one way or the other, depending on the company we work, and that insurance sometimes pays for everything you get, and sometimes it covers most of it, but then you pay some of it. Like in Turkey, for me, I don't remember almost ever paying for things like here and there, very small, sometimes a few liras, but generally it's public and then fully covered by your insurance, unless there's an exception. But there's private hospitals as well if you want to go to them.
Thank you so much.
Got it. Thank you, Newton. So we still have people who want to bring questions, but I think Emma is like it's 1 a.m. at this point there, and I think it's more convenient for him to finish as early as possible. So thank you, Newton, and I'll be following you with. Uh, I would actually would like to know if I mean, is it okay if we get two more questions before we end
Sure, sure, sure.
this? Okay. So Elvis, fique à vontade.
Okay. Are there any aspects of Turkish traditions or holidays or something like that that you miss while you were studying at Minerva?
Yes, I think. Well, in a way, like I have another Turkish friend here with me, and like we're really close with her. So we chat in Turkish when we miss things and like we do stuff. Um, One thing that I miss, like, well, one thing that I miss a lot is the cats. Honestly, like I love Istanbul and the cats. I love that. My city, there's so much to do always. The weather is nice. The people are like, I feel really comfortable there. I miss being there. And the second thing, as a cultural aspect, is I think the neighborhood culture, because in like now it's less in big cities, but even in my like even in Istanbul in my neighborhood, I know all of the neighbors who live in my apartment, like the building. And like my mom, when she cooks something nice, she will give me a plate of it and she'll be like, hey, bring it to the floor three to that neighbor, just like as a gift. And a few days later, they return the same plate with a different type of food. And like you always exchange food. When there's a celebration, we don't do Christmas, we have Eid. But when it's Eid, your neighbors come to visit your home as well. You invite each other for dinner, you invite each other for breakfast. There's this constant thing. Like sometimes you see each other in the street, you chat. Once, for example, I have my German friend visiting me. My neighbor saw us on the street. She's like, "Oh, like how is it going? Who is that?" And they don't speak English, obviously. Like I'm translating. And she's like, "Oh, very interesting, very interesting. I would like to meet your friend and show him something. You guys come tomorrow evening for a TV hangout off the street." So I really like that, like the neighborhood culture, knowing your neighbors, them being so chatty. Everyone knows about each other, like they support each other. When I started Minerva, my neighbors collected money among themselves to give me as a scholarship so I can come study abroad. Like it's an extreme example, it wouldn't be like everywhere, but honestly I like that security and like net support network.
Okay, I understand. So when you finish your college, your graduate, you want to go back to Turkey and building your career there or in another country?
So in the long term I want to be back in Turkey and run for politics. Like I'll be in party politics, national representative, whatever I can. But I don't think I can do it right after, both because of age and I don't have enough resources. In Turkey, if you want to be a politician, you need a lot of money. So the idea is that I will probably build my career either in the US or UK, work as a regional analyst in like geopolitical issues, advising, consulting companies about international relations. And later on in life, when I'm like over 30, maybe closer to 40, when I have enough people like network power and money, I want to go back and work there as a party politician.
Okay, good luck.
Okay. So thank you, Elvis. Next, Rogério.
Thank you, Fabio. Good evening, everyone. Very nice to meet you, Mohamed. Spanish and Portuguese are languages with a very similar structure. My question is, you speak Spanish, right? You can understand Portuguese when Fabio translates?
Well, yes, like most of the time I also know what I said. So I can like follow up what he's saying really well, because sometimes even when I don't understand the word, like I'm aware what part of the narrative he's at. But I think a better example is that on my Instagram, sometimes I randomly get like Portuguese memes or reels, videos. And unless it's a complicated topic, most of the time I can get the joke or laugh at, especially when it's written. Like spoken is a bit harder, but written Portuguese on the basic simple things, I understand most of the time, thanks to Spanish. Also, I think Argentinians and Brazilian people speak similar as well. Like there's a lot of overlaps in those two bits, and I speak Argentinian Spanish, so it helps me a lot. Yes.
Thank you very much for sharing your life experience. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for the amazing question.
Thank you, Rogério. So we still have one more question here from. It's fine. Okay, so Paulo.
Good night, everyone. Mohammed, do you know and ride a balloon in Cappadocia? Because the place is very beautiful.
I haven't been fortunate enough to go there yet myself, honestly. As I said, I left Turkey when I was 16 and I'm 21 now. Like I visited very briefly in between, but it's been a long time. But I know the place. My parents had been there. It's lovely. It's like it's maybe better than what you're seeing in the pictures. That place is an ancient city. Like people lived in those areas before. When you go under, apart from the balloons, there's a whole underground city with churches and schools and like rooms that they used to live in, and it's a very interesting place to go. Um, and yeah, it's one of like most suggested experiences in Turkey. I hope to do it this summer, and I hope you get to do it sometime soon as well. It's a very popular location for people to come over.
Oh, so I think the person who made the question actually left, but that's fine. So I think we're in the end of the session at this point. So thank you so much for everyone who have participated.